Okay, so I actually want to dedicate the learning today to Mr. Sal Schwartz, who passed away just a few days ago, and whose son, whose children are staying shiva right now. In particular, Jeffrey Schwartz is a very close friend of the Greenberg family at the JLIC. Many of his kids have spent time at York. And the name is Yeshayahu ben Yechiel Menachem. So you should have an alias Neshama. I want to talk about a fascinating case. This case is a riveting case for many reasons. It's riveting because of its complicated halachic Jewish law nature, its ethical and moral implications, and how it was dealt with by the United States medical team. Because the individual, the doctor, who at the time was the surgeon in Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, he later on became the Surgeon General of the United States. And he will forever had this relationship with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. And he only passed away a number of years ago. I looked it up. Rabbi Koop died a number of years ago, and he often frequently referenced his relationship with this great saintly man. I don't know if anyone ever seen a picture of Moshe Feinstein. He's about 5 feet, maybe 5'1", in the Lower East Side of New York. And the relationship that they had because of this case actually lasted quite a very long time. And because of his prestigious position, being the Surgeon General of America, he often turned to Rabbi Feinstein, a tremendous respect for Judaism, which is a very interesting relationship, and this was the catalyst to it. Now, there are two cases which are very different, but at the end of the day, from our perspective, they'll be analyzed the same way. Case number one is more modern. That happened in the year 2000, where conjoined twins Jordy and Mary were born, and after birth it was clear that if they remain together, they are going to die. And operating them will definitely result in the death of Mary, and Jordy, reasonable chance of life. Now here's what made this case interesting. This, by the way, took place in England. The parents were devout Catholics, and they refused to allow their children to be separated, and they claimed that it was God's will. It was I guess in Hebrew, the Ratzon of Hashem. And they said, if God wants our babies to die, they will die. And in fact, in the fall, just a couple months later, the British court overruled the parents and forced a surgical team to operate on these babies. And in fact, in November, they were separated, and Mary died on the operating table. So we see a case where the government, where the courts intervened and forced medical treatment. And the case from the Jewish law perspective was the fall of 1977, where this couple, this family had these twins, family from Lakewood, New Jersey. In those days, Lakewood was not like Lakewood was today, but still you had the Lakewood Yeshiva was, of course, still there. And in the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, where Dr. Koop, who, as I mentioned before, became the Surgeon General of America, went and asked, in fact, or Moshe Feinstein what to do in a very similar case. We have two babies. One is very weak. One is essentially going to die. And they have to be separated, or else both will die. And, of course, one will has a reasonable chance to live if you perform the surgery. And you can never say, of course, one's going to live. You can never make such a statement, but one should live. And just want to read you this quote 1 second. And the quote was, quote, "The ethics and morals involved in this decision are too complex for me. Therefore, I refer to an old rabbi in New York. He's a great scholar, saintly individual. He knows how to answer such a question." And Dr. Koop was under tremendous pressure to make a decision, and he pushed off his medical team in the Philadelphia Children's Hospital, waiting for Moshe Feinstein to make a decision. Once Moshe made a decision, then he gave this team the go-ahead to actually perform this the surgery. But you have to wait and find out what did Moshe Feinstein actually decide to do. That's actually pretty cool. And how he reached that conclusion, that will be today's topic question.
Yeah, when we say conjoined twins, just because I don't necessarily know what that means, they're obviously two babies that are attached.
They're attached. So I'll give you an example. In 1977, they were attached by the heart and they were attached by the liver. Okay. So they were, one baby had 4 valves in the heart, the other baby had 2 valves, and it used the other valves of the other baby.
Yeah. The ones in 2000?
Not sure. I don't know. I'm sure.
That would totally change.
Yeah, okay, look. If they're attached by the hand, or the side, that's really easy. You just, that's easy. If you're connected by, obviously, certain organs, then separating them is obviously much more complicated. And what's important, in both these cases, share something which is identical. And that is, one baby is going to die. That's very important. It's not like, most likely. No, one baby is not going to be viable. A month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, we don't know, but just a matter of time. Right? And in the case of the twins from Lakewood, that was definitely the case. For the baby that had the full heart could live. The baby that only had two, and you'll see this is part of what Moshe Feinstein asks the doctor many times, if you cut the baby, is this baby viable at all? And the doctor said, no, this baby is not a viable baby. It has half of a heart. And again, this is 1977. In terms of heart transplant, that's a different world. Again, what would happen today? Could the surgery be more manageable? Again, obviously, if you perform the surgery, both can live. It's a no-brainer. There's no question to ask. It's only a real question when one is going to die. Yeah.
Case as what we saw last or 2 weeks ago in terms of drinking.
Right. Okay.
The water.
Okay. So that's exactly the point of this. Is that this goes on the heels that we did 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. You have a question, or you want to respond?
I have a question.
Yeah. So we'll get to you done in a second. Yeah. No. Ask your question. Are you?
All right. Another question on the case itself. If we end up sacrificing the stronger one, would the weaker one, the weakest one, live or not?
So that is, I think, important. The weaker one is not viable. The weaker one is not going to live.
So you would, in both cases, you would die, right?
Both scenarios are, if you do nothing, both die. If you operate, one will live and one will die.
So either way,
and it's clear which one will live and die. Not either or. It's this will live and this will die. Not one will live, one will die. Which one it will be is a flip of a coin. It's a...
So either way, the weak baby dies.
Either way, the weak baby dies. Yes.
So,
Yeah, correct.
Wait,
Yeah.
how long? No, because I was going to say that in that case it's totally different than the scenario drinking water.
Okay, fine. So now let's go back to scenarios that we discussed 2-3 weeks ago.
But Dali also. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Wait, how long would they live if they babies happen?
So we're probably just a few more months. Yeah. The strain of the heart and the strain of the organs is just too much to take at such a young age. They're just not strong enough. Yeah. Like they don't have years. This can't go on. And that was one of the things that they were pressuring Moshe Feinstein to make a decision right away. Because every day that goes by, you're lowering the chance of the stronger baby to actually live. Because the other baby is literally pulling out his heart. So, okay.
Yeah.
Before we analyze this question, based on the sources in front of us, anything that we've discussed in the past, can it be used, and this is what I think Idan wanted to jump into, which is great, can it be used to help us in making our decision? So if we want to use the classic water bottle case, Idan, did you want to apply it? Do you want to compare? You want to contrast? The case of the water bottle, two guys go in the desert, both, if they drink it, both die, one drinks the whole thing, he lives.
It's basically the same thing.
Because?
Because if you don't do anything, if they don't drink, right, they both will die. Same thing here. If one drinks, one will live. That case, though, I'm not sure if there was a possession.
So we said that one guy owns the water bottle.
So here too, one baby has greater chance to live than the other. That's some sort of possession, maybe, or right.
Okay. Anyone want to comment on that? Yeah.
I think it's different because in the water bottle case, part of the decision that you have to make is who's going to live. Whereas here, that decision has already been made. If you operate, it's obvious which one will live.
Sure, so this is even stronger.
Okay, so very good. Rabbi Feinstein actually brought up the water bottle case, and he dismissed it. Because there are two things that distinguish the water bottle case with our case in front of us. One is that in the case of the water bottle, both can live. Both have a viable option to live. Whereas here, you don't have that. Here, one will live and one will die. And the other thing which he thought was interesting, why it's not quite the same, and that is there's a third party that's involved. I'm a third party. I'm a doctor. I'm a surgeon. I choose what am I going to do? Live it, right? Whereas in the other case, there's no third party. Right? It's my water bottle. If, when we discuss disposition matter, that would make a difference. Okay. So he dismissed that water bottle case as not being able to really glean anything from, because let's look, and I'm sure you're familiar with this. This is a very famous Mishnah in Ohalot, which is in the middle of that page, which is, I'm going to read the Hebrew. Ha'isha shi maksha leled, a woman who's struggling in pregnancy, mechatchim et avalad b'me'eha, and a woman really who's on the brink of dying, you need to, or you're allowed to, or you must actually, cut the fetus from the womb, and you remove the fetus limb by limb. What's this case? The fetus is being antagonistic to the mother, and therefore, if the fetus is essentially being antagonistic to the mother, we sacrifice the fetus and we save the mother's life. Why? Says the Mishnah, because her life takes precedence over the fetus. Right? So again, use this as an abortion case. You perform an abortion to save the mother. That's the bottom line. When do things get much more complicated? Yatsa rubo, if the majority of the baby left the birth canal. So, is it rubo? Is it the head? Is it rove of the head? Let's just say for argument's sake, the majority of the baby left. Let's say the head now has exited the mother. Ain't no gimbo. You're not allowed to touch the fetus. I mean, let's say the baby is in distress, the fetus is in distress during pregnancy, and the distress is so severe that it's causing the mother also. You don't choose one versus the other. Why? This is a life. Who says one life is greater than the other? You don't say, okay, we'll save the mother and let the fetus, this baby die. No. You continue schlepping out the baby, and the baby lives, and the mother dies. That's the way it goes. As opposed to beforehand, the fetus is inside. It's a clear-cut case, mother over the fetus. Yeah?
What does it mean by kodem, like before? Or
Chaya kodmin takes precedence. Takes precedence.
Was there before?
Yeah, it was there before, yeah.
Is that what it means?
No, kodmin means takes precedence. Like it comes before.
What does it mean? Like takes precedence? What does it mean?
Priority takes precedence.
Priority, oh, that's good, priority. Oh, that's good, priority, right, takes priority.
It's still kodem if Rav Kufshada Vlad.
Right, yeah, priority, right. But again, this goes back to, again, we discussed a little bit of priorities. This would be an example. Can we learn from here? Can we extrapolate anything from here onto our case? What do you think? Yes or no? Do you not have a source sheet?
No.
Why didn't you say something? I always have enough source sheet. No? What do you think? Yes or no? Can we extrapolate from this fetus case? Sarah, what do you think? Yes or no? What are you struggling with? Why are you debating? At least let's talk about your debate.
Because
Your struggle.
Is more. I mean, there's only one child involved and only one woman. But in the conjoined twins case, it's two children. So
what? We can draw a conclusion? Ein dochi nefesh b'vnei nefesh. You can't do anything. Can we draw such a conclusion?
I mean, like, I feel like I'm cheating because I learned some this case
Yeah.
before. I mean,
Cheating. What is it, like a U of T exam? Like it's like
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I mean, I thought the connection between that, like, the reason we like asked the question, like, why can you kill the baby? And that idea, like, I can perform an abortion because the baby's kind of like a road death. The baby is like killing the mother. In the same way, though, that if you don't take the life of the conjoined twin, she or he is, in a sense, killing its
Okay,
twin.
so that's a very interesting analogy to introduce the idea of Rodev, which actually we're going to see. The battery's dying? I have a battery in my car. Okay, well, battery's dying, baby's dying. Anyways, so it goes. The idea here is a fascinating idea. Why? Can we make a statement, ladies and gentlemen, that this baby has a status of a Rodev? Meaning, how come we don't say, I don't understand, this baby's being born to the mother. Why doesn't this baby have what's a Rodev? I'll give you an example of what a Rodev is. A Rodev is the following. Reuven is coming, and he has a gun. He's about to kill Shimon. Shimon is allowed to defend himself and kill Reuven, but not only that, Levi, meaning a third party, can look at Reuven and pull the trigger and kill Reuven before he's able to kill Shimon. Why? Because Reuven has the status of a rodef, a pursuer. And a person who's a pursuer forfeits his or her life. So the question is, why isn't, and this is the question that everybody asks, how come the scenario that I just gave you, a third person is allowed to go to Reuven and say, Reuven, you're committing murder. You want to kill Shimon? I'm going to kill you first. You're allowed to do that. So how come when this baby's being born, why don't we say this baby's a pursuer? This baby's a rodef. This baby's killing its mother. Why don't we say, kill the baby? Why do we instead conclude, Ein dochi nefesh b'nei nefesh? What are you talking about? Why is this baby a rodef? Why is this baby a pursuer? Yeah?
Once he's out of the womb, he loses his status of...
So again, why doesn't he have a status of pursuer? If this baby is causing the death of his mother, why don't we say you're a pursuer? You have a status of a rodef. That's my question. That's my question on the Mishnah. Kill the baby. The baby's killing its mother. It's a rodef. It's like, why is it any different than Reuven? Reuven is coming with a gun, wants to kill somebody. The baby's killing its mother. Yeah?
Because a rodef requires intention.
Okay, very good. Excellent. It's clear, of course, there's a difference. And this is what's learned this Mishnah teaches a very important lesson. What do we learn from this Mishnah? In order to have a status of a rodef, you need kavanah. Right? You need the intent to kill somebody. Reuven intends to kill Shimon. He's a rodef. He can be killed. This baby, what happened to this baby? The language the Gemara uses, if you flip the page, the language the Gemara uses, right? And again, our mission is quoted. Just go to the end there at the top, at the bottom. Sorry. The top source, but the bottom of that top source is, right? Yatza Rosh Enogi in Dochin Nefesh B'nei Nefesh. Va'amai, the Gemara asks, rodef, why doesn't this baby have a status of a pursuer? Answer, Shani Hatam. It's different. They're pursuing from heaven. Meaning, it's nature. The baby is pursuing its mother. What do you want from the baby? It's naturally, so to speak, God, let's blame God. God, essentially, is causing this baby to kill the mother. You can't blame the baby. Whereas Reuven is a conscious entity and is wielding a weapon. So therefore, he can be killed. The baby, it's min shemaya. What do you mean? It's the natural way the world is. What do you want from the baby? Ein dochin nefesh b'nei nefesh. Okay, so if I can't call this baby a rodef, now what do I do? How am I supposed to know what is with this baby? Meaning, what can we do? What will give us this allowance to operate, to have this baby, which isn't viable, die? But how can it allow me to perform the surgery, killing the baby, in order to have that other baby live? We can't use the source necessarily from here because it's not a rodef. Now what are we going to do? Do you remember? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so everyone thinks it's a rodef. It's not really a rodef because it requires another piece of information. Okay. This is what gave Rav Moshe Feinstein a very big headache. Because he said, what am I going to do? You can't blame the second baby. This first baby, look at it. First baby, second baby, right? Because that's why it was born. How could you actively do anything? So then, yeah, what? You remember?
I just glanced at
You glanced at the Let's look at the next source. Flip the page back for a second, at the bottom of the page. Says the Rambam at the bottom in Hilchot Yesodei Torah. The Rambam, I'm sure I'm sure many of you have encountered this in some form or another. Nashim shamru lahem ovdei kochavim tunu lanu achad mikem netame ota v'imlav netame et kulchem yitmu kulchem v'am yimsu lahem nefesh echad miYisrael. If the non-Jews, and by the way, unfortunately, many of these scenarios took place in the Middle Ages and took place in the modern era in Nazi Germany. If the non-Jews said, hand over a woman so we could defile her, you're not allowed to hand over a woman in order to save everybody else. Next, Hand over. They come to a city, the non-Jews, the Nazis, lay siege to a village or a city and say, okay, give us a Jew or we're killing everybody. You're not allowed to hand over anybody. Rabbi continues. By the way, we're making an assumption that they actually mean what they're saying. Like, hand over one person, we really will save everybody. The argument of, and again, in Nazi Germany, we know this, did not apply. It was very rare the Nazis said, give us one person and we'll spare everybody. They might have said it, but they never held to it. So Rambam is talking about a different mindset in the Middle Ages, where if they actually said it, they actually meant it. It was not the case in Nazi Germany. We don't realize that. In most other times in Jewish history, when the non-Jews actually said something, that they say, by the way, that convert, bow down to them, and we'll save you. It happened all the time. Nazi Germany was the first time, by the way, and this makes that time period so different than the other time in Jewish history. It was the first time where a Jew got up and said, I'm not Jewish, I want to relinquish my Judaism. He was still killed, or she was still killed, or murdered, right? That's very different. It was the first time that actually took place in Jewish history, especially en masse. Anyways, let's go on. Let's continue in the Rambam. What about if the non-Jews say, okay, they laid siege in a city, and they say, okay, give us, if you hand over George, we'll spare the entire city. Are you allowed to hand over George? So again, this previous scenario I told you was give over one person. What about they call out somebody and they say, give us George, right? Then Rambam says, Im haya mechuyav mita kisheva ben Bichri. So this is talking about a case from Shmuel. When Sheva ben Bichri, remember what he did? He was, anyone know? Moreh b'malchut against David and Malach, he's chayav mita. He cursed David and Malach. So we know the halacha is, Jewish law says, if a person rebels against a king, by the way, you have to have halachic status of a king. This says as an aside, there are those who want to argue, I don't want to get into this, a famous, the Netziva Volozhin, Chaim Volozhin actually says, the Netziva was a Rav in Volozhin, said that if a government official is elected by Jews, that person has the halachic status of a king. And therefore, anyone who curses the prime minister of Israel is chayav mita. Now, what's interesting here is that it's not totally applicable because the majority of Jews don't vote for the king. And in Israel, they've never had a majority government ever. But interesting, but regardless, a real king of Israel that has a real status, you're not allowed to curse the king. Now, you shouldn't never curse the prime minister of Israel because that's not appropriate, not a nice thing to do, right? You're not Yoreh b'malchut. You're Yoreh b'malchut, you're chayav mita. That's the halacha. So therefore, here's the question. What about if there's a person who's chayav mita and someone says, hand them over? Are you allowed to give over that person? Says the Rambam, Yitnu oto lahem. Yeah, you're allowed to give him up. Ve'in morim lahem kain l'chatchila. You don't help with this halacha. Right? The Rambam says, you know what? If that guy's going to die anyways, let's say, by the way, a person is facing death row, and he'll be put, again, at the time of the Jewish court system, he'll be put to death tomorrow, according to Beit Din, and tonight the scenario happens, hand over one person, you want your hand over George, who's on death row anyways tomorrow, hand him over. Do you hand him over? So the Rambam says, you could do it, but we don't teach it this way. We don't want to practice this at all. And if he's not chayav mita, everyone instead should die and not hand over one Jew. Again, this is called active versus passive. Actively, we don't hand over people. If they're chayav mita, the Rambam gives maybe some leniency, but actually the halacha says that we don't do it at all. And Rashi, in fact, however, says no, you actually can hand over someone l'chatchila. But the Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch, which I didn't bring here, actually says that we don't hand over people. It's the wrong thing to do. So, Rav Moshe Feinstein said, can I apply this to our conjoined twins case? Can we say that this baby is like kind of chayav mita, like on death row? And by pulling out this baby, we'll save everybody else? Can this be applied or not? What do you think?
I think so.
Because
if the weaker of the conjoined twins was at that point it wasn't looking good,
Mm-hmm.
then it's clear that either they're both gonna die, or just the weak one's gonna die.
And therefore, why not hand them over? Meaning,
Right.
why not
Right,
perform the
save the
surgery?
stronger baby.
Save the stronger baby. Yeah.
Okay. Also, maybe not, because like before it was like hand over this one person and you'll save the whole city. Here it's like only saving one person.
You're saying when it's 1 versus 10, maybe, not 1 versus 1. Okay, interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah?
Also, the issue that's going to come up is, like, you can't measure the value of those extra few minutes of life that weaker baby would have had. Just like the guy who's chayav misa, even if he's going to be killed the next morning, we can't measure the value of that person's life in those 12 hours between, when he would have been killed then or when he lived. Does that make sense?
So,
Meaning, like,
it's a nice statement what you said, but that's actually not true.
No.
No. I'll tell you why, because you often hear that. And it's true, there's no question living a few more minutes is very important. But first of all, Rashi argues. In fact, Rashi says if a person's chayav mita, you hand them over. And we know, this is going to sound a little cruel, but it's true. If a person has the halachic status of a treifa, if a person is facing imminent death, and they're not going to live another 12 months, and you kill that person, so you're not chayav mita. You didn't do something nice. We don't, we're not going to say shkoyach to you and sponsor kiddush in your name. But if you kill a treifa, it's not the same. You're not chayav mita. You might be chayav for the tirtzach. Don't get me wrong, right? So it's not. So we do see there's a little bit of a difference if a person's not going to live a year. You're right. There's still value in living longer and da. So, and for Rashi, so Rav Moshe Feinstein said, I don't want to make, even though the Ramah holds like Rashi, since the Rambam says we don't ain morin kian lachatchila, I can't publicly come with a decision if the Rambam says, I don't like it. How could I then make a psak halacha publicly when the Rambam says? So I can hold like Rashi and the Ramah. Wait, no, my mistake. Delete that. I can hold like Rashi and it'll be fine. But the Ramah holds like the Rambam that says you don't even hand over a person, even if they're on death row. So if Moshe Feinstein said, I don't want to choose Rashi because I have the Rambam who doesn't like it, and the Ramah who says we don't hold like Rashi, we hold like, and we take the stringent approach like the Ramah.
Even though Rashi's the Rishon?
Even Rashi's the Rishon, yes. Because he felt that the Rambam clearly didn't like Rashi, didn't agree with Rashi, and he didn't want to choose, if there's a Machloket Rishonim, there's an argument between medieval scholars, in the matter of life and death, he doesn't want to make a decision based on one or the other.